Hello, this is Sierra and welcome to another video. Today we're doing another Hermitcraft season Clockwork video. We are reading chapter 8. And yeah. Let's get right into it, shall we? This one will probably be short, and chapter 9 is a long one. It's a long chapter. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Chapter 8. I might just continue. Grian was preparing for bed as the sun was starting to set, having spent a good portion of the day calling hermits and checking to see if anyone had come across any slips of paper with a symbol on it. Well, the hermit said he could through the communicator. He hadn't been able to reach a few of them for some reason after he saw Chum and Cigars go off their own little adventure. He didn't mind it at all, so long as there were people there that could make sure they were safe. That Mr. men wouldn't be able to hurt them. He'd gathered up everything he was planning to do the next day, any materials and weaponry, depending on whether or not they were going to try to outsmart Mr. men. He had heard plans of some of the redstone experts working on some traps in the hopes of catching some of the men, especially if any might be significant or dangerous, like Mr. A or RJ, or the man that had attacked him in Impulse before, many times. He checked several times to make sure he had everything he needed before starting to walk over to his bed as he looked out into the sunset outside. The beautiful reds, yellows, oranges, and deep blues, and royal purples painting the darkening sky as the stray clouds glided above, reflecting the light with slight gleam. The sun was just peeking over the tree line as the stars began to twinkle into existence. They sparkled with a mystical essence. He didn't spend too much time admiring the beauty of the coming night as he suddenly heard the communicator buzzing in his pocket. As he took it out, and as it connected. "Hey, Grian," Impulse's voice went through. "What's up?" Grian asked curiously, sitting down on his bed, putting his bare hand on the soft covers. "Do you remember when I said earlier that I didn't find a piece of paper last night from the men?" "Was a clock on it?" Impulse asked quickly. "Yeah," Grian said wearily. "Well, I just found one," he replied. "I had a feeling you might," Grian admitted. "Did you see anything weird?" "Not yet," the YouTuber said slowly. "Blake's keeping a lookout, but I really don't think staying here alone tonight is a good idea. Well, not just the two of us, anyway." "Do you want to come here or me to come there?" Grian asked. "I don't know. It might not be a good idea," the YouTuber admitted. "I'll leave it for now, but I'll be sending a signal if I see a problem." "Got it. I'll do the same," Grian replied. "Just to ask, do you know if anyone else got one? Or is it just you, me, and Scar?" "Nope. No one has been upfront with me about it. At least," the YouTuber replied. "I'll keep you posted." Planning on it. Grian nodded before wishing his friend good night before the device disconnected as he placed it on his bedside table, getting up to pull the covers back as he glanced back at the windows warily. He had a feeling something still wasn't quite adding up. He hoped his friend was safe. He knew Scar was, at least. It was just Impulse and himself that he needed to make sure of, unless someone else was being secretive about what they had in their possession. My time would tell. He decided as he crawled into bed, as exhaustion consumed him, as he closed his eyes and fell asleep. Episode 38, Chapter 9. Yeah, that was barely 4 minutes. Grian's eyes snapped awake as he heard a loud explosion downstairs, as he felt the floor from under him shake as he sat up in bed. He climbed out of bed, still startled by the noise, as the rumble still echoed in his ears, as he went over to the window, looking down to see nothing, as he went over to the chest and pulled out a pair of elytra wings and put them on. He wasn't sure if he needed them, but they were good to have on him just in case. He'd also grabbed a stack of non-explosive fireworks on his way out, as he went to the door and opened it, glancing each way as he heard commotion from downstairs. Tuba walked over to the stairs and peeked down, seeing a part of the main room had been blown to pieces with people fighting amongst the remains. "Get out of here, Grian!" his escort shouted from amongst the battle. "What's going on?" Grian asked as he heard one of the men shout at him, and a few of them attempted to head for the stairs. After he heard the escort tell him to go once again, he stepped away from the stairs and began to head back down the hall. heading for one of the rooms that faced away from the commotion, as he heard pursuers coming up the stairs from behind. They were under attack. Stray's men were here, and if he didn't act fast, he'd be in trouble. What were the men here for? To capture him? Kill him? He didn't know. He wasn't about to stick around to find out. He found a room as he grabbed the door and opened it, slipping inside as he locked the door, hoping it would slow the men down as he ran for the window, unlocking it as he opened it. The fresh breeze wafting as he saw the moonlit sky above, the stars twinkling rather brightly, more than he had remembered. That didn't matter right now, though. He jumped when he heard banging on the door as someone shouted at him to open the door as he glanced back nervously, wary that the men could just break the door down. There was nothing stopping them. He needed to go. He yelped when he noticed something pass him and shatter into the room as he looked back at the empty meadow below at the newcomer, and then the newcomer as he swallowed, jumping before the man reached over and grabbed him. As the YouTuber cried out in surprise, he was launched far from the window onto the hardwood floor. "I've got him from here," the man said, people hanging and banging at the door. "Just slow the projector down, that's all I need." So the YouTuber sat up as he looked at the man, an uneasy feeling filling him up inside him, as he reached for his pocket and pressed a button on the communicator. The hallway beyond the door had gone quiet as the man stepped close to him. "What do you want?" Grian asked wearily as the man reached for his own pocket, his eyes fixed on him. "You're on orders from Mr. A," the man said darkly, "to ensure the proper consequences are made." "And what are mine?" Grian pressed nervously, looking over to the door. Should he try to go for the window again, or would he be able to unlock the door in time to escape whatever horde the man had in mind for him? "You'll see," the man replied with a dark smile as he pulled out a dagger. "Grian!" his escort shouted from through the door. The YouTuber could hear something heavy slamming against the wood as hope filled him as he looked up at the man. "Don't even think about it," the man warned firmly. "Or what? My friends suffering consequences? I've heard that before, and I've yet to see it happen," Grian said as he lifted his chin high. "Oh, your friends have suffered, all right," the man chuckled. This time, you won't be able to escape from me." The YouTuber watched as the man stepped in the way of the window. He swallowed again, hearing the door crack. "Hurry!" he called out, his voice managing a nervous squeak as he scooted back, realizing he'd put all his weapons in the chest somewhere close by. The man's gaze was persistent. Should he risk it? He knew all the rooms had at least a bow and some arrows, a precaution he had placed to ensure the maximum chance in case he needed to defend himself. He didn't have much of a choice. The man worried himself. "Do you have any final words you would like me to share with your friends?" the man asked. "No, because I'm not going to die today," Grian said matter-of-factly as he jumped to his feet and bolted to the chest. As the door crashed and the man lunged at him, Grian yelped as he leaped for the chest, opening it to grab a bow and some arrows, as he whirled around to see the man had been tackled by his escort. "Go, now!" the escort insisted, just as a grunt of pain came from the pile. Grian took a step back nervously, wondering if he should risk going on the window again, just as he saw a couple of Mr. A's men come through the door. He aimed a bow at them, warily, as he looked between them and the commotion on the floor. As the man stood, his escort lying on the floor, unmoving, moments before it disappeared with a puff of smoke. Grian nearly dropped his bow as he gasped in horror, his eyes widening as he looked up at the men. "No. Where were we?" the man asked as he picked up the dagger that had fallen to the floor. The YouTuber eyed it nervously, seeing a red stain on the blade. He tried not to imagine what the man must have done. "Stay back," Grian warned, noticing his hands were shaking, having trouble holding the bow and arrow in place. "Or I'll shoot." "Oh, there's no need for that," the man said as he shook his head, taking out something from his pocket as he threw it. Grian leaping out of the way as he put back the bow and arrow, bolting for the window as he jumped out, gliding towards the meadow below, as he heard the men shouting at him to stop. He ignored them as he landed to the ground, stumbling on his hands and knees as he got back up, turning back just as time to see ender pearls flying towards him as he ran towards the woods, crying out for help as he disappeared through the trees. not daring to look behind him, as he saw how close the men were catching up. To see how close the men were to catching up. He could hear arrows flying through the air as he kept running, wondering if he should try to turn back and shoot arrows at the men. It felt too risky. He needed to get out of there, to lose the men, to get away as he pressed onward. Ignoring the aching he felt in his legs, he called out for help. Might as well give up, YouTuber, one of the men shouted. You can't run for us forever. Maybe I can, he proclaimed, as he yelped in surprise, as he stumbled back, hearing the glass shattering just as the man stood before him. Grian turned to bolt to the left just as the man grabbed him by the shirt collar, and slammed him onto the ground as the hermit groaned. You've given us quite the chase, haven't you? The man said slowly as he stepped over the YouTuber, looming over him as Grian looked up at him. Why are you doing this? Grian asked quietly, wondering what the man would do if he tried to pull a bow on him. Probably just rip it out of his hands. There is no chance against this man now alone. Mr. A wants to make sure you don't forget the consequences of escaping us, like you have, the man said as he narrowed his eyes. Want to make sure you and your friends are an example of that threat. We won't stop you until your kind gets what you deserve. You're the one who put all the symbols in our rooms? The YouTuber pressed. But of course, the man said with a knowing smile. I'm excited. I plan to keep it. Well, you won't be able to get the scar. He's well protected, the man said. YouTuber said defiantly. Maybe so, but he's not the only one we're after now, is he? The man pressed. Grian swallowed before nodding his head slowly. He looked away from the man to see the other two of Mr. A's men approaching, just as he heard what sounded like a click of redstone signal. As the floor from under the men collapsed as the two men fell into whatever trap had been laid there, as the man looming over him looked back in surprise, just as someone lunged at him, tackling him to the ground as Grian cried out, partly out of fear, as he sat up, seeing his rescuer pushing the man into the hole as he heard someone land beside him. You okay, Grian? Bubba's voice asked as Grian looked up at him. His friend was holding out a hand. Grian took it as the YouTuber helped him to his feet. I'm fine, Grian said quietly as he watched B-Dubs stepping away from the hole as some of the members of the cause went in to apprehend the man, as the three of them were pulled out. Where are they going? Away. Far away, Mubble said simply, watching as the members escorted the men away. Grian's eyes were locked on the main man in charge of this. His eyes were cold, dark. Thank you for running to the man warned, just before it disappeared from the trees. You know that's far from the truth. Grian swallowed again, taking a step back as Mumbo put a hand on his shoulder. Grian didn't notice as he reached for the communicator in his pocket and took it out, turning off the distress signal as he looked at it, trying to find what he was looking for, till he did. He pressed a few buttons as he tried to connect to the only person he knew who had gotten that piece of paper. It wasn't somewhere that was safe. There was no response. There wasn't even a distress signal being stopped. Absolutely nothing. Grian? Mumbo asked warily, probably noticing the nervous vibe his friend was giving off. I need to go, Grian said quickly, pushing the YouTuber's hand away as he put the device back in and grabbed his rockets. Grian, wait! Mumbo shouted as the YouTuber launched himself into the sky, gliding towards impulse space, hoping it wasn't too late as he heard his friends shouting for him to come back. It pained him to ignore it, but there was no time to wait. No time to explain. He needed to go, knowing full well his friends would certainly be right behind him. I'm going to end it here. I'm sorry. I'm going to end it here. Yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. Thank you so much for watching. And yeah, I will see you in the next one.